In the years before maps and sextants, sailors spoke of an archipelago that floated where storms were born. They called it the sky-forged isles, because every headland and cliff rang like bronze when the wind struck it, and thunder rolled beneath the soil as though a heartbeat still pulsed in the stone. Old mariners swore the islands were not carved by tides or time, but hammered into shape by colossal stormsmith gods. During nights when the firmament split open with violet fire, they imagined celestial anvils glowing above the clouds, and each clash of lightning became the ring of a titanic hammer. It was said that the stormsmiths lifted raw thunder from the void, cooled it in rain, and shaped it into land, the way mortal blacksmiths shape iron into blades. On an outermost isle named Cressfall lived a humble fisher called Aru Lambert. He had a steadied hand, a laugh that carried across water, and a small boat patched so many times it resembled a quilt of driftwood and hope. Crestfall's shingled cottages clung to ridges that jutted over sapphire depths. Each morning their chimneys exhaled salt and seaweed. Yet the village was dying. The basalt underfoot had begun to crumble as though infected by rot, and each season the ground sank deeper, swallowing gardens, wells, and memory. House posts warped, foundations wheezed, and tidelines climbed higher on every door. Children swam in alleyways where Aru had once flown kites. The elders held council before the temple of broken clouds, where a single slab of crystallized thunder rested on an altar like a tooth yanked from the sky. The oracle Mabrin, her hair white as gull feathers, her eyes webbed with storms, claimed the islands were unraveling because two of the stormsmith gods, Kelek the Hearthhammer and Brontara the Spearforge, had fallen into jealous strife. Their feud drew reckless winds, and the forging anvils above had cracked. Until the gods were reconciled or rearmed, the foundations below would continue to sink. A shard of living lightning will seal the wounds, Mabrin croaked, voice echoing around the hollow slab. Place it in the heart cave under Crestfall, and the bedrock will sing whole again. But living lightning rests only on the anvils of gods. Who among us will climb the air and steal fire from immortals? No warrior answered. No captain volunteered. Nets must still be tended. Mouths must still be fed. And who steals from beings who forge worlds? Aru felt the hush stretch like drying rope. He thought of his mother's grave, already lost beneath a new tide pool. Of his sister patching walls that would not stand another summer. Of children learning to walk on floors that tilted like decks in a squall. He was not strong, not noble, not sanctioned by any order. He was merely a fisher who loved his home enough to gamble with lead. "I will go," he said, voice cracking as though to echo the island itself. The crowded square murmured disbelief. Even Mabrin regarded him with the sorrowful surprise one reserves for those already dead. Yet tradition bound the elders to grant a petition freely offered, and by dawn a frail ceremony armed Aru for an impossible climb. He received 3 gifts: a hook forged from the oracle's thunder slab, said to draw lightning the way honey draws flies, a net strung with fine copper threads, light as breath yet strong enough to snare gulls mid-glide, and an oiled pouch made of ray skin sealed by a spiral clasp, in which any captured lightning would sleep without devouring its bearer. Tales said the stormsmiths worked within the Envilac, the roiling citadel of cloud that hung like a blacksmith's hood above the central sea. Its pillars of vapor formed ladders for cranes of thunder, and its interior glowed with molten sky. No mortal had ever reached its rim. Winds shredded sails, and currents ran opposite one another in tortured braids. But Aru owned a knowledge older than charts, the patience of a fisher waiting for a bite. Patience can measure winds, listen to currents, and find breaths of calm between flurries. He left Crestfall at twilight in his patchwork skiff, steering by the red eye of a setting star. Swells rose in curt bows, but in their troughs he glimpsed something stranger, a pale gleam beneath the surface, as though the bones of the islands were shining through thinning flesh. Each flash stoked his resolve. For 2 days he tacked toward the anvil arc. Squalls gnawed his sail, yet when clouds bruised the horizon, he read their shapes like smoke curling above cooking pots. Here a hook of wind, there a pocket of lull. On the third dawn, a wall of thunder dipped to taste the sea. It drank 100 ships of water in one breath and exhaled it as rain so cold it rang on Aru's mast. The fisher furled his sail, strapped the oracle's hook to his belt, and waited until the curtain of lightning stitched a shimmering ladder down the sky. Plunge a line, wait for a tug. That was the creed he knew. So he cast his copper-braided net upward. The storm answered with a blinding fork that struck the mesh and held, jerking his boat into the air as though hoisted by an unseen crane. Water sheared off his hull in silver sheets. Higher and higher he climbed, boat dangling beneath the captive bolt, until the sea became a wrinkled map. At last the net tore free of burned embers, and Aru landed on a shelf of aerated cloud as firm as sand, the skiff reduced to drifting cinders behind him. Lightning hissed in the tatters of the net, but the stormsmith's realm accepted his weight like an unasked question. Aru walked through corridors sculpted from vortices. The floor flexed, each step releasing puffs of pearlescent mist. Above, anvils of condensed darkness hung on chains of wind. And the air, how it rang. Every breeze carried notes of half-fogged thunder, chords still cooling into future islands. He almost believed he could pick up a stone and hear tomorrow inside it. It was not long before he met Embry, a sprite no larger than his hand, born of sparks that fell unnoticed from the hammers of gods. Embry flickered with unspent charge and wore a crown of filaments that fluttered like grass in static wind. The sprite peered from a vent of cloud and chirped, "You smell of salt and promise. What business has a brinefoot in the anvilar?" "I've come to steal lightning," Aru answered. "Honestly, because fishermen are taught that lies sour a catch. My island sinks, my people drown. Only a living shard will mend our ground." Embry's filaments brightened in admiration or amusement. Aru could not tell which. Brontara and Kelek duel above the core furnace this very hour. Shards fly with each hammer strike. But guard yourself. Stormsmiths grind mortals into drizzle if found trespassing. "Help me navigate," Aru pleaded. "Guide me close to the anvils, and I will share the shard's echo with you, whatever that may mean in your tongue." The sprite considered, then zipped into his copper-laced net, perching like a spark in woven branches. "Carry me, fisher. I will show you where thunder leaves its skin." Together they descended, spiral gusts, until they reached a vast amphitheatre walled by cyclones. In its centre hovered an anvil grander than a mountain, surface veined with quicksilver heat. 2 figures stalked its rim. One, Kelek, a broad-shouldered titan of brass and ember, beard braided with storm clouds. The other, Brontaeus, tall and lean, limbs made of hammered mercury, hair unfurling into forks of white fire. Each held a forging hammer carved from collapsed stars. They circled a block of raw thunder the size of Aru's entire island. Kelek struck first, driving his hammer in a deep, reverberating arc. Sparks skittered off, each spark already coalescing into pebble-sized cinders of future land. Brontara counterstruck, slicing edges with surgical blows. Between them, the mass began to compress, facets sprouting like crystals, protocliffs, nascent beaches. But artistry soon surrendered to rivalry. Kelek angled for breadth, Brontara for height. They argued in thunderclaps, and each disagreement shook loose more shards that whirled into gutters around the anvil. Embry whispered. Their quarrel started when Brontara claimed dominion over straits Kelek had sworn to his own name. Islands cannot be forged jointly when pride locks hilts. Aru's gaze fixed on the gutters where sparks collected, arresting momentarily in a trough. gleamed a spear of living lightning no longer than his forearm, thrumming like a swarm of bees trapped in a jar. It pulsed with layered hues, cerulean, rose, then sudden gold. That shard, he felt, would be enough. Yet between him and the prize rose intermittent gouts of molten thunder and the stamping feet of gods. Fisher's patience, he reminded himself. He waited for Brontara and Kelek to clash near the northern lip of the forge, the moment when their shoulders turned away from the gutter. When the thunderhead rumbled, a perfect distraction, he sprinted. The cloud floor tried to swallow him, each footfall sinking ankle-deep in churning vapor. Embry scampered ahead, burning small paths. He leapt across rivulets of glowing rain, slid under a suspended chain of iron wind, and dove into the trough. The shard's radiance singed his eyes, yet his oiled pouch hung ready. He stabbed the oracle's hook beneath the shard, expecting weight. Shockingly, the lightning behaved like a fish on a line, writhing, darting left, right, yanking his shoulder. Adrenaline surged. Memories of midnight tuna wrestled from winter seas returned. He gave the shard slack, then pulled slack, pull until its motion matched his rhythm. One deft flick, and the living bolt flipped into the rayskin pouch. He sealed the spiral clasp. Silence, brief as a gasp, fell. But nothing hushes in a forge of gods for long. The shard's disappearance snuffed one luminous vein on the anvil, and Brontara noticed. Her argent eyes narrowed. "A thief among anvils," she thundered, voice scattering smaller clouds. Kelek turned, nostrils flaring hot enough to vaporize drizzle. Together, they scanned the amphitheater until Kelek's gaze locked on Aru, copper net slung over shoulder, pouch humming like caged thunderbird. "Hatchling," Kelek boomed. "Do you seek to wield what births continents? I will hammer you into foam." The Titan raised his stellar hammer. Impact would have ended Aru, but Brontara struck Kelek's wrist, sparks spraying like constellations shaken from sky. "No," she said, lips curling in a grin jagged as lightning's path. "Let the mortal run. See where courage carries him. If he escapes your anvil, perhaps the shard belongs to his kind." Her mockery fanned Kelek's fury. Aru did not linger to watch gods quarrel. He bolted, Embry guiding him toward a vent that spilled skyward. Behind, a half-formed island broke apart under misaimed hammers, fragments tumbling into lower clouds like flaming meteors. The vent narrowed into a funnel. With no sails, no ropes, only instinct, Aru threw his copper net into the updraft. The mesh caught wind, billowing into a makeshift wing. As hot air punched upward, it lifted him. The net crackled as residual charge danced through filaments, stiffening them into ribs. He soared. Kelek's roar chased him through corridors. Lightning shattered walls around him, each bolt a near miss. Embry dove into the pouch, adding its spark to the shard, urging it to glow brighter, hotter. A nacreous light haloed the fisherman, painting him a comet hurtling toward the sea. The cloud shelf eventually thinned to wisps. Blue water, littered with storm shadow, waited far below. Aru folded the net, tilted his body and plunged. Gravity demanded a tribute of fear, but the fisher had faced gales that hunted ships for sport. He surrendered a shout and let the sky speed him. He struck the surface like an obsidian dart, joints buckling, lungs hammered but intact. Around him, boiling hiss accompanied each droplet, where lightning energy touched water. He tread as the pouch bobbed on its tether, warm against his chest. Embry popped out, reduced to a single flickering filament. "Your turn, Blindfold," it squeaked, voice fizzing. "Carry the forge in your blood now." Aru spotted driftwood remnants of his skiff, charred yet buoyant. He lashed planks into a rude raft and paddled south, guided by gulls and memory. 3 days and star-filled nights passed. Though currents fought him, each time fatigue neared victory, the pouch thrummed reassurance like the beat of a steadfast drum. On the dawn of the 4th, Crestfall's silhouette rose, but it looked wrong. Roofs canted, jetties swallowed, temple spire half drowned. People stood along cliff edges, staring as cracks peeled open and cottages listed into brine. Children pointed at Aru's tiny raft, and for a moment, hope and despair tightened into the same breath. He staggered ashore, body crusted in salt, hair standing on end from the pouch's static heartbeat. Mabarin met him atop the quaking ridge. The oracle's eyes widened at the ray skin bulge. "You truly hooked a storm," she whispered. "We must hurry. The heart cave floods." Villagers formed a procession behind Aru, carrying hammers, chisels, and lengths of copper. They descended stairs, spiraling into the isle's core, walls slick with seepage, floor trembling. The cavity at Journey's End resembled a yawning wound. Basalt fissures yawned where magma once glowed but now leaked seawater. One more quake, the elders had warned, and Crestfall would split like rotten bark. Aru stepped to the edge of the fissure. He unhooked the pouch. Imbri emerged, now only a dim ember, and settled atop his shoulder. "Set the shard free," it murmured, "but guide its strike. Lightning untethered obeys nothing but madness." "How?" Aru asked. "Like you haul a fish," Imbri said. "Give it a path and tension." Aru nodded. He attached the copper-laced net to iron stakes hammered around the fissure, forming a rough funnel that narrowed toward the deepest split. Villagers stretched additional copper threads from stakes to basalt pillars, creating ribs reminiscent of a giant manta's bones. When all was ready, Aru unclasped the rayskin pouch. The living lightning surged out, brilliant beyond daylight, a storm condensed to thought. It hit the net and raced along copper, each filament glowing white-hot, then cooling to gold as charge passed. The current dove into the fissure, and a chord erupted, a note deeper than thunder, yet sweeter than whale song. As molten rock reawakened, the ground shuddered. But this tremor did not breed collapse. Rather, it pushed fissures closed, fusing cracks, expelling seawater as steam. Basalt rehardened, veins glowing cherry, then settling to calm obsidian. Above, the island's sagging rim lifted incrementally, as though inhaling for the first time in a century. When the last spark melted into stone, the copper net fell limp, smoke curling around knots. The shard had vanished, its energy married to Crestfall's bones. Silence followed, so profound that villagers heard their own tears strike floor. Outside, tides retreated a full span, revealing beaches not glimpsed in years. Cottage beams straightened, doors unjammed, chimneys belched joyous smoke. Crestfall stood steady, and its heartbeat, up once a dying rattle, resumed as a low, confidence-rich hum. Embry drooped, filaments nearly extinguished. Aru cupped the sprite in his hands. "Will you fade?" "Not fade," Embry answered softly. "Transform. The shard's chorus calls me home." The sprite floated upward, sparks shedding like dandelion seeds, till only a faint glow remained inside Aru's chest. Then, even that dissolved. Yet in the cave's roof, a new mineral vein shone thin, bright, twitching with embryonic electricity, the first seed of a guardian spirit, some said. Weeks turned to months. Mariners approaching the sky-forged isles reported a beacon where none had been. Atop Crestfall's restored temple, a narrow spire of glassed basalt radiated soft blue light each night, the island's renewed pulse gnawing darkness. Fishermen navigating shoals used it to dodge reefs, grateful though ignorant of its birth. As for the stormsmiths, legends diverge. Some say Brontara laughed for 30 days, having proved a mortal could humble Kellec's vigilance. Others claim Kellec forged an anchor of hail to chain his rival's heart. Yet all stories agree on this. After Aru's theft, the gods learned caution. They hammered thunder into land with greater deliberation, for they had witnessed their own power wielded by fragile hands. Aru returned to his nets, though storms sometimes paused above his boat, as if remembering. On quiet evenings he would touch the copper hook, now blackened and cracked, and feel a whisper of Imbry's grin. Children sat on the gunwale begging the tale again. How a fisher outweighted wind, climbed a ladder of lightning, and angled the biggest catch in history. Aru never claimed heroism. He only told them patience is a line cast into mystery. Hold steady, feel the pull, and even gods may bite. Thus the legend of the sky-forged isles added another verse. It reminds every chorister, every sailor, every barefoot child skimming waves with sticks, that the world is hammered daily into being, and mortals, even lone fishers with patched boats, can slip between the blows, seize a spark, and mend the land beneath their feet.